Hi, I'm Matt Frost from ARB. Now, normally when we talk protection equipment, we think bull bars, we think outback, we think kangaroos, and certainly you need bull bars in the outback to stop you from kangaroo strikes. But up here in the high country, protection equipment takes on a whole new meaning, especially in these types of wet, slippery conditions. We've been driving up and down some pretty steep trails today, over rocks, we've had water running down there, and the cars start to sort of get quite unsteady and you're slipping and sliding and so forth. And the great thing about having good protection equipment in those sort of scenarios is that if you are unlucky enough to sort of slide into a bank or something, if you've got a good strong bull bar or a rear bar or even side rails down the side of the vehicle, that protection equipment is going to certainly take most of the impact. I mean, I remember in my Hilux many years ago, we came down a track and we literally slid off the track into a rock. And look, the side rails took a really great big hit and they were basically a bin job, but they completely protected all the panel work on the car. So protection equipment up in the high country, particularly in these wet conditions, is absolutely essential. Now, with the newer style four-wheel drives, this is becoming increasingly an issue. A lot of the late model dual cab utes, for example, not only do you have to think about the front, back and side of the vehicle, you really need to take a good look underneath as well. And that's because a lot of them have fairly limited ground clearance. They're all virtually independent front suspension vehicles these days, and there's lots of little components underneath that can break very easily if you hit them on a rock. So you really need to have a look under your vehicle and consider fitting underbody protection as well. We would strongly recommend on most vehicles that, particularly the low slung dual cab utes and so forth, that you really want to fit protection equipment basically from where the bull bar finishes right the way along to the back of the transfer case. And that way you're protecting things like the sump, the gearbox and of course the transfer case as well. Now, the bull bar is probably the first thing that people buy for their vehicle, and there's a very good reason for that. I mean, at the end of the day, if you are unlucky enough to slide down a track into a tree, hit a kangaroo at high speed, there's a good chance you're going to immobilise the vehicle. So you do want a good, strong steel bull bar up front, protecting you from those sort of situations. And of course, the modern bull bar does a lot more than just protect the vehicle. It's an ideal mounting point for things like an electric winch, CB antenna, driving lights, and most of the late model designs, and certainly all the ones that are on these vehicles we've got today, have also got things like high lift jacking points incorporated into them. Again, when you're driving over rocks and things like that, if you do get yourself hung up on a rock, a high lift jack is a great way to get the vehicle up, chock underneath the wheels, and then keep going. So again, having jacking points on the bar work is a very good feature. Now, a lot of people ask us, why does the bull bar I'm buying for my new four-wheel drive cost a lot more than the one I bought 10 years ago for my old four-wheel drive? And the reason for that is they've really come a long way in terms of design. And that's by necessity. You've got things like airbags fitted to vehicles these days, and it's absolutely essential that the bull bar doesn't in any way interfere with those. And the other thing with vehicles like this, there's a lot of sensitive underbody componentry, which is sort of tucked up and hidden behind the plastic bumper. Of course, when you pull the plastic bumper off, you see all these relays and wiring looms everywhere. Things like intercoolers sit in the front of a lot of cars these days, and all of that stuff is very vulnerable. So not only do we fit a bull bar to these vehicles, the bull bar actually comes with what we call underwing panels, and these are special bolt-on panels that are actually part of the bull bar kit that provides additional protection for all of this sensitive underbody componentry. So when you actually open up the box and have a look and see what comes with this kit here, there's a lot more than just a bull bar and a few bolts in there. Now, we've always said the single most important feature of a bull bar is its mounting system and how it attaches to the chassis. It's absolutely vital that the bull bar is, of course, very securely mounted so that it can withstand things like side angle pulls when you're winching, and of course if you do hit an animal, something like that at high speed. And that applies to everything else as well. I mean, if you have a look at the side rails on the vehicle, one of the reasons side rails are so much stronger than your standard side steps you tend to find you get on four-wheel drives is the way they mount to the vehicle's chassis. You normally find the side rails will hit up against the chassis with great big thick heavy-duty U-bolts, as opposed to things like the aluminium side steps that quite frankly just attach to the underside of the body, quite often using self-tapping screws. And as soon as you hit a log or a rock with something like that, then quite frankly the things bend and invariably fall off. Now, with protection equipment, take a good look at who you're buying it off. There's a lot of stuff coming in from Asia these days that quite frankly is very poor quality. The finishing on the product's fairly poor, making them very susceptible to rust. We encourage our customers to actually come through and have a look through our factory. We regularly run tours for things like all the four-wheel drive clubs so they can actually see the stuff being made. I mean, in there you'll find laser cutters, robot welders, and a very high level of care and attention to detail to make sure that the product that we're putting out is the very best you can get for your vehicle. We frequently talk about preparation when we're on these trips, and quite frankly, vehicle protection is a very vital part of that preparation.